Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we're doing a pause 3 tier list, offlaners. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought about keeping this video real concise and basically saying, hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we're going to be talking about Razor and why, even if you're extremely bad at the game, have no mechanical skill and no understanding of positioning, you can pick Razor and win probably about 55% of your games. You can know nothing, be horrible, just buy the shard and some defensive items, a little bit of spell lifesteal, and you're probably going to do okay. And honestly, I think that would have been good enough for the pause 3 tier list, but I decided to flesh it out, go through F, C, B, A, and S tier, and so let's get into that. I just want to say, guys, don't forget to subscribe to the Game Leap website. It's currently 50% off, all right? I know you're like, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, I don't know. It is now the time to sign up. I'm making a lot of videos over on the website. I've made 5 videos in the last few days. Videos on the offlane, safe lane, mid lane, draft analysis, game analysis. Basically anything you're looking for is going to be on the website. And if it's not, I have multiple people who are signed up on the website message me through Discord saying I'm looking for this guide, and I'll make the guide. Like, very frequently that happens. And so yeah, if you're looking for a much better Dota experience, you want to win solo queue and get to the next rank, Game Leap is currently 50% off. You can sign up down below using code FEB50, and I'll see you guys there. Alright, I do want to give a quick disclaimer before I start getting into the tiers that I'm not like looking at this from a pro player standpoint. I think if this is a pro tier list, it's completely off. I actually don't even think Razor offlane is that good in the pro scene, but I think it's like really stupid in pubs. On top of that, a lot of the heroes you might disagree with. Of course, I'm, open to hearing your opinions. And I love reading the comments to just get so much positivity from you guys. I mean, usually about half the comments on tier lists are people telling me that I'm really stupid for thinking a hero is not good when it's definitely not good. But alright, regardless, let's get into it. And yeah, I'm not rating the hero based on its competitive usefulness. I also will take into consideration how hard the hero is when ranking the hero. Alright, let's get into it. So F tier. Natures and Mars are my 2 F tier heroes. Let's start with Natures. When it comes to difficulty of heroes, I think Natures is maybe one of the hardest. I'd say in terms of conceptual difficulty, I think Nature's Prophet is a top 3 hero. Being able to teleport anywhere means you can make a mistake constantly. And that's kind of the problem. People just TP into everything and kill themselves, which is why this hero's win rate is one of the lowest in all of Dota. It's a bottom 10 win rate hero in all of Dota. It's really difficult to scale with because the hero naturally doesn't have abilities that make it scale. Yes, it has good base stats, it has good base attack time, but it doesn't naturally scale with its abilities. And so you have to know what to do, where to farm, and what timings allow you to be strong. And I just don't think that this is applicable for the average player. So if I was to recommend a hero to start winning with now, and to be good with now, it would definitely not be Nature's Prophet. However, it's not considered a bad hero, at least in Pro Dota right now, so if you do want to give it a shot, I'm such a big fan of this hero, so it really hurts me putting it here. I play it now, I think it feels pretty good right now, I just think for the average player, it's not there. Now, Mars, I don't like it in the pro scene, I don't like it in pubs, I don't like it ever. I never like seeing this hero. I think it is the worst stun hero out of like every stun hero in the game right now. It's unreliable. Its numbers have been nerfed literally 40,000 times. I'm not kidding. If you go onto Mars's nerf page, you will be blown away at how many times this hero has been nerfed. God's Rebuke nerf, Spear nerf, ulti damage reduced, Bulwark, actually maybe that's the only ability that's not touched because it's not that broken. Oh yeah, except for the Bulwark Axe. Bulwark Axe nerfed. Everything about this, the Ags got crushed. Everything about this hero has been nerfed to the point where it's like you have an unreliable stun that doesn't even pay off to hit it. It's like a 2.4 second stun. It's not even that, I mean, it's not bad, but it's not even that long compared to like the 3.2 of Axe, or I think even Centaur's 2.8 on their maxed out stuns. So for me, it just doesn't make sense to pick Mars. The hero it's an okay laner. That's probably its only major upside in my opinion. It's like a reliable laner. Sort of. It has some matchups that it really can't play. Like, for instance, Naga tends to destroy it, or at least, do well against it. So I see people missing spears. It's clunky. It's hard to scale with it. I just don't see why you would pick Mars over some of the other initiators, which I'm going to talk about. All right, now let's get into the C tier. I'm going to spend less time on these heroes. So, give me a little bit of slack if I don't get into every single detail on why the hero isn't the best, but let's get into it. Starting off as Brewmaster. I think in terms of difficulty, he's one of the hardest in the game, but his numbers also just don't really make him pay off. Also, I think the biggest reason that I don't really love Brewmaster in pubs is that he tends to fall off late game. Yes, if you're a micro god, perhaps that's not necessarily the case, because you can purge your teammates, purge the enemy's buffs, lift someone in the air, stun someone, maybe solo kill a support with the units. If you're perfect, maybe it looks pretty good. It also has a very strong 6 timing, but at the end of the day, I think it falls off too hard and is just a little bit too hard to play, putting it at the bottom of C tier. Then we have Dragonite. I don't think Dragonite is bad every game. It actually has some really nice matchups and is a pretty good laner in almost every lane. So it's good in that regard, but it falls off. And I think this is kind of the problem. They've nerfed Dragonite's numbers pretty hard. Its stun got nerfed, its Dragon's Blood got nerfed. I even believe its ulti got nerfed, but I know for a fact its shard got nerfed. So this hero, it was very, very good a couple of patches ago and then got kind of thrown into the dumpster, making it getting outshined by a lot of the other popular heroes right now. Then we have Bristleback. Another thing that I forgot to mention about some of these bottom tier heroes, and that I think is a common theme between every single one of them, is that none of them buy aura items either. They don't enable their team to be strong, tanky, and have some stupid mech or drums or pipe early on into the game. You're just not buying these items on these heroes ever, right? I mean, I guess you could, but it's probably not going to feel very good if you buy mech on Bristleback. It just won't. Like, you can try it. Please go try it. Let me know how that goes. I'm very curious. It's probably not going to go very well. And so, yeah, Bristleback, it's greedy. I think people kind of know how to play against it nowadays. Like, just don't kill yourself on the Vanguard. Kill his teammates if he isn't farmed. You know, they nerf the Ags really, really hard, so I just don't think there's a selling point to the hero right now. Then we have Timbersaw. I'm personally a big Timbersaw enthusiast, but I will admit, I think it's one of the hardest heroes to play, and I think it has very, very specific timings that if you miss, it feels really bad. It's also not unkillable like it used to be. Like, current Timber, because of how reactive works, is pretty easy to gank and dies to physical damage. It just feels like it dies. It's very hard to tank towers because of how reactive works now, giving only 1 charge on creeps and towers, and it's up to like 40 stack. It's just very clunky. Reactive feels clunky. It's not a good laner, too much mechanical skill, and honestly, it's hard to even manage the mana. It's just a little bit too difficult to play the hero, and I think honestly, in some games, if it doesn't have good matchups, it can feel really garbage. Then we have Doom, which makes me really sad to put Doom at C tier. Like, really sad, because I feel like this hero is potentially really broken in pubs, but I think what it comes down to is players just don't maximize efficiency. And I've been coaching someone pretty frequently, an Immortal player, and he's a Doom player, and what I had to really teach him was focus on your timings, hit your timings. And this is an Immortal player, right? This is someone very, very competent, very smart guy. And yet he was struggling with this, right? He was getting baited into too many fights, and when Doom in the early game has an ability that's maxed out that practically only makes you tankier with 7 armor. Yes, it maybe gives you like a stun, which is okay, like War Stomp, you know what I mean, Devour. It just doesn't feel like it does enough in the early game, and I think what ends up happening is people show up to fights too early without the proper items, their BKB, their Blink, whatever it is, and they end up just feeding a bunch compared to the other heroes in the early game that once again are going to show up with those aura items, even though I think Mech Doom is actually a really cool concept. Then we have Viper. This hero's numbers just suck right now. Magnus. Honestly, Magnus situationally feels very good. I think people build the wrong items. I think Mech Greaves Magnus is generally the way to go. I think Blink is okay some games if your team has no one to set up the fights. But either way, I think Magnus is just very hard to play. And unfortunately, that puts him in C tier. Then we have Sand King, who has a pretty outstanding win rate in my opinion at 50%, which is way higher than what I would have thought it was. Honestly, I thought this hero would just get run over in the majority of laning stages, but I guess it just doesn't get pressured enough. And that's kind of a common theme in your average pub. Heroes that have weak laning stages just don't get punished, which allows them to get to their mid-game timing and actually somewhat shine. And I think Sand King is a pretty good example of that. But at the end of the day, I think one of the big things that I really have an issue with Sand King is just how he never really feels very tanky to me. Because of the fact that a lot of people go like Blink Ags or Blink, I've even seen a bunch of people go like Blink Radiance, which is insane to me. So horrible. But the hero just doesn't seem very tanky. It kind of just goes in and then dies. And this is a very common trend, making it definitely a C tier hero. Now let's get into B tier. And the first hero, which has a pretty good win rate at about 51%, is Slardar. I'm personally not a fan of the hero. I think it gets kited in the early game. But if you can get out into the mid to late game and you can have 2.5, 3 items like Blink, Mask of Madness, BKB, something along those lines, then the hero begins to pop off. And I will say I have had games where I get an early blink dagger, I get active and get kills. I've played the hero. I used to play it quite a bit, like I would say about a half year ago, and it felt okay, and it hasn't changed since then. So I used to really like the hero, but in my opinion, compared to the, once again, it's all about the comparison to the really broken heroes. What does it lack? It gets dominated by certain heroes in lane. Like it gets zoned out by the Monkey Kings. I feel like it just doesn't do well against Nature's Prophet, for instance. It doesn't do well against Lina, even though theoretically it should, because it like pierces BKB or whatever. It just kind of feeds to her in lane. I had to literally coach that lane recently, and it's just so miserable for the Slaughter. So in terms of the meta, I just don't think it does well. It's like really horrible against Razor, which is one of the top heroes right now. It just doesn't. I feel like it just doesn't do enough. It gets kind of too hard, and yet its win rate's pretty good, so I guess I can't hate on it that much. I just personally see this hero feed every game, and like before it has BKB, it just looks like a bot to me every time. I don't know. Then we have Visage. This hero's numbers have been nerfed a million times, but at the end of the day, it takes towers, buys auras, and is a pretty good laner, making it a decent tier hero. Then we have Veno, a hero I never see in my level of pubs, but at the end of the day, it scales extremely well. Veno's ultimate doing percentage-based damage means that in the late game, no matter how tanky people get, no matter how far behind you are, you always have a way to kill people because of the fact that your ulti literally can do 70% of their health, reliably, on multiple heroes. And so what ends up happening with Veno is he's a pretty good laner, has some really, really good matchups, for instance, Ursa, TA, you know, these types of heroes, he just destroys them in the lane. However, you don't want to play Veno against like Lina or NP. Those matchups are completely unplayable from my experience. It's so bad. So bad. Like the hyper kill lanes, Veno cannot lane at all. It's so bad. But yeah, he scales well, does good damage, and I think that's what it comes down to. The hero's really, really good when it can get to like Ags, Blink, Aether in the late game and just hit a 2-3 man ulti and then die. It just has so much impact. Then we have Leshrac. I think this hero, just Bloodstone, if you can get it 13-14 minutes, you just gotta play a very greedy style, which I think most people don't do for some reason. They get a little bit too active, they try to do a little bit too much. If you can focus on hitting that Bloodstone timing around that 13-14 minute mark by staying in your lane, taking the tower with maxed out Edict, and chilling in that area, you'll have a very, very strong timing. And as long as you play for that timing, I think Leshrac is definitely a B tier hero. Then we have Beastmaster, who has one of the worst win rates in Dota, but I could not put him in CRF because this hero, if you learn how to play it, does way too much. It will take every tower without you having to show, it scales well because of vision and a BKB piercing spell, and it snowballs harder than most heroes in Dota. And its major weakness, Beastmaster's major weakness in my opinion, is its laning stage. Its laning stage is its biggest weakness, but in your average pub, you typically won't even get pressured that hard. I'm just being real, you just won't. As long as you buy a decent amount of regen and pull a little bit of creep aggro, and then play defensive, that is the key. Don't do anything, just play for your Helm of Iron Will. Copy the pro build, play for the Helm of Iron Will, get a 7 to 8 minute Helm Dom, kill the enemy safe laner with Roar, take the tower, and then farm everything in your vicinity. Get a 15 minute Helm Dom 2, 14 minute if you're popping off, 16 if it's a little bit harder, and then take the tier 2s and take Roche. And the game is so strong. I just can't believe that this hero's win rate is so bad. It does so much. Then we have Enigma. I think he's a great aura buyer, but the hero's numbers got nerfed very hard on Eidolons, making it pretty hard to lane, and I think that ends up being the issue. People's last hits with Enigma in lane are really, really bad, and really I think that's just frankly the issue. Also, Silencer's pretty popular, and you know, Black Hole. Dawnbreaker. This hero's win rate's like 50 flat. I don't think it does anything special. I don't think it's broken. I really like the Ags. I personally think the best way to play Dawn offlane is like a right-click variant, but even that doesn't feel insane. It just kind of falls off. The hero's a very good laner in some matchups. For instance, I feel like it crushes Crystal Maiden with like a Hoodwink Dawn or like Sky Dawn, like can crush NP. It can even beat something like Lina in lane with the help of Skyrath. So it kind of counters some of the meta safe laners, which is cool. And it has some viability there as a counter pick, but like in pubs, it's kind of hard to do that. You know what I mean? Unless people are first picking Lina. It's kind of hard to do that. So yeah. Then we have Bounty Hunter. Basically, you buy a Vanguard, then you buy an Axe, and you chuck that around. Hero can't die in the laning stage as long as you buy an early Ring of Health, and you steal a bunch of gold from the enemy offlaner, and it does kind of a lot. Then we have Tidehunter. This hero's win rate's actually sub 50, which is surprising to me. I feel like it's much better than that, as long as you go for like just an aura variant. I will say, I thought I saw a really cool build from 33 recently, which I made a video for on the website, and he went for a Mech Blink Shard build. It looked really, really great, and then after that, he went Hex. So basically, he would just stun someone for 6 seconds, because he would Hex, and then Ravage, and then Shard them, and he would stun people for, 6 seconds, and then clear the dangerous creep waves, which made him have a lot of impact. But at the end of the day, these A tier and S tier heroes are just a little bit better, and so let's get into them. In terms of one of the best stun heroes in the game, I think Primal Beast is definitely up there. Mechanically, the hero is a little bit difficult, but if you can get it down, it does some of the highest damage in the game. It also has some of the highest kill potential in the lane, getting it to level 3 and to level 5. When you have phase boots in level 5, you can kill the majority of Dota heroes, and I think that's a big selling point of Primal Beast. At level 6, you basically can solo kill any safe laner, and that's really awesome, because in pubs, the safe laner almost never will rotate out. And so you should get a kill at some point in the lane. Like, as long as you go the right items and you're not too stupid. Yeah, so you should get a kill at some point in the lane. Couple kills, you build into your BKB, and then you're just one of the highest impact mid-game heroes in the game. On your BKB timing, as long as you hit your onslaught trample combo, you're gonna get a kill, and it's gonna allow your team to snowball off a nice kill in the early game. And then in terms of scaling, Primal's talents are the real selling point here. Trample cooldown of 15, and then 25% trample attack multiplier at 20 is the real key here. Because basically, the hero, when you click trample, it takes 30% of your damage. This is the base ability. It takes 30% of your damage and turns that into the trample damage, as well as base damage on the trample. But most of the damage comes from this 30% in the late game. And then at level 20, you get another 25%. It's nearly a doubling of that number, right? All the way up to 55% damage amplification. You pair that with a Kaya Sange, and this hero begins to do wacky amounts of damage, especially if you can get to a Hex, you can solo kill almost anyone. Then we have Brood. Now, you might have expected, if you've watched a lot of my videos, for Brood to be S tier. I just think it's a little bit too hard for people to play. I do think Brood is an S tier hero. I think it loses practically no lanes, so it can win almost every lane and loses almost no lanes. It takes a tower, it buys good items. The Orchid build is great if you want to scale as a right clicker. If your team needs a mech, then you just want to play high tempo with like a Lesh mid and keep that guy safe. You can go mech pipe, you can go an early Hex, you can go Axe. Like, there's so many different variants of this hero. You can do anything in any game and always have a ton of impact. And it's just like, it just does a lot no matter what. However, if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna run out of mana, farm inefficiently, and then fall off. And, and then it's just gonna be like, how is Brood even good? It's like, trust me, it's good. You just don't know what you're doing. Then there's Night Stalker. Just does a lot of damage. I think it's not that good in the pro scene because its timings get punished, but in pubs, its timings, aka daytime and no ultimate, don't get punished, at least as hard, intentionally, and therefore it just pops off on its timing. It gives a ton of vision, will solo kill a support, and allows team fights to be really, really easy. And honestly, that's a big thing for me on the hero. It's also really easy to last hit with, and it's also great for diving towers just because of the vision you get with your ultimate. Then we have Darkseer. I'm convinced at this point Darkseer has such a high win rate because people know that you have to buy auras on the hero. It's like, it's one of those heroes like Underlord, for instance, which is another hero on this list. You're gonna buy auras, and I think auras are just really great right now, but people just don't buy them, even on the heroes that should buy them, like Tide and Enigma. Like, they just don't buy them. And it's like such a mistake in most games where you're going to be team fighting constantly. Right? These items just are way more effective than almost any other in the game at the moment. It's just how it is. Mech's just too cheap for how much it does. Just does way too much, doesn't cost enough mana, it's only a 50-second cooldown, it's just a little bit too good. Greaves are quite strong right now, etc, etc. But yeah, Darkseer, he buys all the aura items and does a lot. And honestly, when people don't buy BKBs and don't buy the right defensive items, and by the way, okay, I stood in for a scrim recently. I had some really nice friends invite me to stand in for a scrim for them. And so I stood in for a scrim. I think it was about 3K average, 3-4K average. There were some immortals, but basically in the team fights, people clumped up so much. Like, I was like constantly blown away that I could jump whoever I wanted every single fight. Like, there was, if I wanted to go on the Rubik, I could go on the Rubik every fight. And no matter what, they were just clumped up and I could see everyone. Guys, you need to hide, by the way, for playing like a squishy support. Why is everyone just eating each other's booties? Like, I don't understand. You need to position. This is a side tangent. The point is Darkseer likes when people clump up because you like vacuum them together and then you create an illusion and then they die and then it feels great. All right, Axe. In terms of the stunners, this hero is a good lane, scales well, counters the hyper damage glass cannon builds that people tend to go on the carry role nowadays. I don't know why that's still a thing after like 15 years of this game. People buy just too much damage. But yeah, Axe, very, very strong win rate. I think it comes down to the fact that it's a very easy laner. Like, I think people even know to cut the creep wave nowadays and just get really, really farm. So it's great at diving the tower. It's great at fighting early with the Vanguard. And I think a lot of people just ends up getting a ton of kills on that level 6 Vanguard timing. On top of that, I think Blade Mail is in a great spot right now. Like, I'm personally a huge Blade Mail fan. I think the item is under-purchased on a variety of heroes. I think you could buy it. But yeah, I think obviously it's the best on Axe. Like, there's no other hero that uses it better, maybe Legion, but it's super good on Axe. And I think, as I said, Blade Mail's in a great spot. It allows you to farm very fast because of the passive, even the active. It lasts for 5.5 seconds nowadays, which was a big buff from 4.5. That extra second is so noticeable. Man, this Axe Blade Mail calls, and then no one wants to go on him because he has like 1,000,000 armor for the duration. And then this Blade Mail is just never, it just feels like it never turns off. And so I think what ends up happening is the Axe jumps in, he pops his Blade Mail, people counter initiate on the Axe, they kill themselves, and the fight will go well from there. As I said, also the hero, because it rushes a Vanguard, tends to be a pretty reliable laner, and it's hard to make a lot of mistakes. And even if you get ganked, often you'll live because of the fact that you, as I said, buy a Vanguard. And all on the same note is Centaur. I think very similar to Axe. I'm actually not going to get much into it. For a lot of the same traits, I think the hero is very good. On top of that, its numbers got buffed. As long as you buy 2 rings of protection in the laning stage, it has so much HP regen. You do have 0 base armor, so as I said, buy the 2 rings of protection. But from there, very easy to lane with. If you have a winning lane, if you're against something like even the current Lina, or let's say Sniper, or even Nature's Prophet, these squishy range heroes, and you're laning with something like a Rubik, which is a classic combo, or Shattered even, another classic Centaur combo, you can take your Hoof Stomp and then Double Edge and just kill people. And then really my big selling point for Centaur, which blew me away the last time I played with it, was the Heart Shard build. The amount of synergy you get out of this is insane, because what the shard does is every time you cast Double Edge, you get a 15% of your strength. And so if you buy a heart, you just get so much bonus strength constantly. You become stupid tanky and Double Edge your nuke on a 4-second cooldown. By the way, the shard stacks up to 5 stacks, so you get like a heinous amount of strength. But then it does damage, the Double Edge does damage based on your strength. And so you stack up a ton of strength, you're unkillable, and you just run people over. Like, you just nuke. I've seen it play out multiple times. It's a crazy scaling build, something Centaur used to never be able to do. He was just an aura bot, just a stun bot late game for most of his existence, outside of like the Manta Centaur patch, which let's not get into that. But alright, then we have Underlord, a good laner. Like, this hero is literally always a high win rate in pubs. It just is. It buys auras, it's strong in the lane, it does a lot of damage, it just kind of is reliable. It's like all reliable. You don't know what to pick, you don't know what your team needs, you could pick a dang Underlord, build some more items, and cast your spells in the team fight. It's so straightforward, its passive is very effective against a lot of hyper right-click carries. It's just a reliable hero in pubs. Obviously, it doesn't provide reliable lockdown. That's one of the big downsides, but it's good wave shove, right? So you can safely clear waves. You can farm very, very quickly. So if your team is AFK, you have something to do. If your team is not AFK, you have something to do because you have aura items. It can play in any sort of game. It's just a reliable hero. It's a good frontliner, which is honestly really nice in solo queue. Being a hero that can run in, just be the guy who YOLOs in, initiates, and allows his team to follow up is so reliable. And it's honestly a big trend on the A-tier heroes. These heroes that don't care if they get gone on. Where a lot of the B-tier heroes, outside of, I would say, Tidehunter, can't really get gone on. But a lot of the A-tier heroes are just more tanky, or they're like these Greaves, Pipe builders, the Blade Mail builders. All these heroes, they go in, and then they don't really care if they get gone on as long as they get their aura item off. And I think you just have the most value when you're doing this nowadays in Dota. Then we have Legion Commander. Honestly, just scales well. Good laner, scales well. As I said, Blade Mail's in a good spot. I love the level 10 talent, but I think it mostly just comes down to the scaling. You get so many duels, the game lasts a long time, and you end up being able to solo kill any hero you want anywhere. And really, I think it's as simple as that, with Legion being an A-tier hero. Then we have an Undying. Yes, Undying offlane. I really believe in it. As long as you can just go Greaves and yeah, you just become a complete aura menace. Like you just show up to all these fights with auras and just bully people completely. Like just absolutely dominate people with your presence. And yeah, so I really think the healing version of Undying, the Greaves into Holy Locket with a maxed out Q, maxed out W, not even focused on Tombstone, is the way to go right now. You rush Mana Boots in the lane and you can dominate almost any hero in the lane as well. And finally, for the last A tier hero, we have Lycan. Lycan, honestly, I considered putting it in S tier, but I felt that because it's a little hard to play, it's not. However, its win rate is one of the highest. I think it's actually the second highest out of every hero, every offlaner on this list. And I think it comes down to the fact that it just does it all. The only thing it doesn't do is its early laning stage can be punished. And as I said, I've mentioned this a couple times, but I believe in this concept. I've noticed it after so many different coaching sessions, watching so many replays. The early laning stage just doesn't get punished hard enough. And when this is the case, a hero like Lycan, which needs to be bullied in the early levels, doesn't. And then when he hits Helm of Iron Will, his 900 gold item, what is it, 925, whatever it is, it's done. It's over. You can't pressure him anymore. 2 points in passive Helm, he's unpressurable, right? It just gets to that point. Then you hit your Helm, you get your ult, and every single safe laner gets kicked out. And they will die because they don't rotate out. And that happens too. So you get a kill at your level 6, you get the tower, you're top net worth, right? And then all of a sudden, you can start just scaling, right? Because the next set of items, for instance, Saberlight, he's one of the top left players that plays quite a bit of Lycan compared to other players. His build is almost always, from what I've seen, AC into BKB. So you scale into a right clicker. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is Howl is one of the stupidest abilities in the game. At nighttime, Howl is an 8-second duration that reduces damage by up to 60%. You heard that right, because Howl is 40% attack damage reduction. But at level 10, you can take 20% Howl attack damage reduction. Meaning, right clickers, if they cannot dispel it, or if they're just casually farming and don't want to dispel it, because you're not going to pop your BKB to farm an Ancient Camp, then for 8 seconds on a 16-second cooldown, globally, even if you have no vision during the nighttime, you can make the enemy Drow Ranger hit for 60% less damage. Now keep in mind, it is base damage, right? So it doesn't work very well against something like God Strength, which gives Sven almost purely added damage. But against something like Morphling and Terrorblade, they hit for 0. Morphling despises playing against Lycan. If he pops his Manta and he gets howled and he cannot dispel it, he will hit for 0 damage. And that's how it is. So basically what I think it is that comes down to Lycan being so good is his biggest weakness, his early laning stage, doesn't get punished. And then from there, he just does a ton. He takes towers safely, he farms fast, he scales well, he sort of just does it all. And it's great at solo carrying pubs. And then finally for the S tier, I'm not going to get too much into Razor. Frankly, it is what it is. As I said, foolproof, buy the shard, run in with a Bloodstone, and you're going to have more impact than someone would playing an extremely skillful Invoker. They can hit every wombo combo in the game, and they're going to do less damage and be a lot less survivable than you. So, it is what it is. And finally, on the same note of stupid heroes that run in and do a little bit too much, we have another aura buyer, not surprisingly, the Greaves Rusher Death Prophet. Yes, I believe this hero is an S tier hero. It loses almost no lanes. It just doesn't. The only hero I really think dominates it in lane is Nature's Prophet. Like that matchup's horrible. Outside of that, every matchup's playable. Like quite good. Every matchup can be good. And then from there, I've watched the last 3 Death Prophet replays I've watched. They've all lost their lane somehow, or like went even, which isn't even how it has to go. And then they still destroyed the mid game. They'd show up with a mech and maxed out Siphon, and even though they were 1,000 gold poorer than everyone else, they still carried the fight, because all of your spells just do way too much damage. For some perspective, Spirit Siphon at max level does 100 damage per second and heals you for that for 6 seconds, meaning it's a 600 damage nuke, sorry, that heals you for 600, and that's 1 charge, and you get 4 of those. They are on a 38-second cooldown, which is kind of the problem, but then Exo also does a heinous amount of damage. Basically, this hero wins every early game fight. Unless you literally YOLO into 4 heroes, face first, you will not get bursted, you will not die. If you have mech, you certainly won't die. If you have Greaves, they can't buy Vessel, which is the main old way to counter DP. You Vessel her, reduce her healing. Doesn't work against Greaves! Because it just gets dispelled! And then she runs in and kills you. And so really, I think what comes down to Death Prop for me is back in the day, I didn't think the hero was a good pub hero. I thought mechanically it was a little bit too hard. But if you get decent at it nowadays, just get decent and go the Greaves build, you will notice that the laning stage is really easy at level 3. You should be using your siphons pretty frequently at level 3. That's when they heal you for 300 and do 300 damage. It's disgusting. It's a 600 HP swing at level 3. Keep that in mind. That is how much HP most heroes have, and it swings that amount of health, okay? And then you buy a mech, stupid item, and then you scale decently well. Some games you'll fall off. I recommend you take the Cryptstorm talent at level 15 to make sure you can keep farming. And personally, I think the best pub stomping build on this hero is Greaves and a Kaya Sange. The reason why is the Kaya Sange gives you spell amp, so it allows you to carry the fights a little bit by yourself. It makes you really tanky, and it gives you enough mana to farm in your level 15 talent as long as you buy a couple of clarities. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you disagree with my list and really hate my guts after watching this video, I'd love to hear that in the comment section down below. It always just brightens my day when people tell me that, as I said, I have no clue what I'm talking about. You know what? At the end of the day, I fully agree with you. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. Let me know if you want me to do another position. Hopefully, I'm done with this tier list for the patch. I'm ready to talk about some new builds. I'm genuinely excited to talk about, I don't know, how you can play. Mars. I hope Mars gets really... Actually, no, I don't hope Mars gets really buffed. I'm fine with that hero being bad for a bit. I'm excited to talk about the new broken Sand King build. Blade Mail Sand King when the new patch comes out. That's probably... Right, Blade Mail's for some reason going to get buffed. Sand King is going to get some number buffs. The hero is going to shoot up to a 52% win rate. And I'm going to be hyped to talk about that. But until that happens, let me know what role I should talk about next. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.